A good evening to you all. I'm very excited to introduce the next panel to you guys. As we all know, the best is always saved for last, so let's be expectant. And this panel is it is an intergenerational panel where we are having various people in different generations or with various ages. So we are going to have a discussion of the climate justice where we get perspectives from various people, from younger people, from the youth, and from the older people, and we get like the various experience that they have. We are going to have keynote speakers, as we very well know that an intergenerational conversation on the climate justice is very vital because it brings together people from different age groups to discuss and address the complex challenges related to the climate change. This conversation aims to bridge the gap between generations, recognizing the unique perspectives, knowledge, and experiences each generation brings to the table. The intergenerational conversation on the climate justice strives to develop solutions that are inclusive, equitable, and sustainable for all because they are involving the views from the various people that are actually facing the issues of the climate crisis. And I'm going to invite our first panelist, and this is someone that we have already heard from. She is our youngest panelist of the day and has a lot of information to tell us. We are very expectant. We are going to learn a lot from her. And the person I'm calling is Grace Stewart Nisima. We are very happy to have you, Grace.
Thank you.
Grace is a 10-year-old Ugandan climate justice activist. She is the author of the Little Earth Soldiers book, which all of you should try, by the way. It's very good. And she's also the team leader of the Little Earth Soldiers, who we saw earlier before, who gave us a very nice presentation. They were dancing to the Earth song by Michael Jackson. It is the knowledge gap that she discovered that prompted her to write a book that she believes will be a practical guide for schools and children to learn about climate change in an easier and more fun way. Grace has appeared on local and international panels sharing her views about the climate change and recruited over 3,000 Little Earth Soldiers. Guys, this is amazing. She also runs a charity drive in Karamoja to contribute to solutions towards the climate crisis. She's also charitable. She has also been actively involved in planting trees, currently planting the palm tree oil project in Kanungu district. And we are going to have our next speaker, very amazing and exceptional. We are going to have Aklila Alwi, who is based in Malindi, Kenya. We are very happy to have you, Aklila. Aklila Alwi is a young climate activist and environmental activist from Kenya. She is a member of Rise Up movement. She advocates for gender equality. As we very well know, it's very key in our search for climate justice. She fights for gender equality, girls' education, and women emancipation. She has been part of various activities, such as climate strikes, beach cleanups, and planting of mangroves with the Blue Earth organization, because mangroves are very great carbon sinks in the fight for the climate change. She's also the media deputy director and volunteer for Stand Up, Shout Out, working on equipping and empowering youths on climate-related issues, human-wildlife conflict, and other issues affecting community. Guys, are you seeing the speakers we are having? Very amazing. So I'm going to invite the next panelist. This is an elder. This is a person who has great experience, and we are going to learn a lot from him. I'm calling over Mr. Sylvester Kule. You're very welcome, sir. We are very happy to have you. Mr. Sylvester has a Master of Science in Agroecology. He has experience for over 20 years in agricultural-based training institutions as the principal and director at St. Matthias Agriculture College in Mbuye. He has also worked with various NGOs, for example, as the board chairperson, Sustainable Agriculture Trainers Network, and as the executive director, Kasese Give a Goat Africa. Currently, he's serving as the programs director at Bethany Land Institute. Guys, let's be expectant. And I'm going to invite over the final panelist, and this is Miss Justine Lubanga. We're very happy to have you. Miss Justine is a female in Uganda holding a Masters of Arts degree in Human Rights. She has a bachelor's degree in Secretarial Studies and a PGD in Human Development, a PGD in Human Rights, Child Rights, Classroom and School Management, as well as a certificate in Climate Change Management. Ms. Justine is a co-founder of Early Learning and Rehabilitation Services of Hear His Voice, Uganda, and the organization is established to create, advance, implement, and lobby for transformative environment for children and individuals with hearing loss to communicate using unspoken language in order to attain their full potential. For example, how we are having here sign language, it's very important that all those guys are included and we are able to communicate with them and live independent lives in their communities. She is also an entrepreneur. She is the founder of Bambiripa Innovation and Skills Center, a model center, enterprise, skills facility of international status in products design, production, and stimulating the untapped into innovation. Ms. Justine is also passionate about girls, women empowerment, and effective climate action since they depend more on natural resources, yet with minimal or no access to them. So guys, as we have listened to the various introduction of our keynote speakers, our amazing speakers, they're very exceptional. And that's why I told you the best is saved for last. So I am going to start with our youngest panelist of the day, where I'm going to give you a question. Grace, we have heard about the work you've done. We have heard about how you are the author of the book, Little Earth Soldiers, and how you are the lead of the group of the Little Earth Soldiers. So Grace, could you tell us more about the incredible work that you're doing with the Little Earth Soldiers and why it is important to include the voices of children in environmental conversations?
Thank you so much for that question. Before I go right into the question, I'm so humbled to be here today. Thank you to the organizers for bringing me here, because such intergenerational panels are not so common. And personally, thank you, Miss Vanessa. You are an inspiration to me and my generation. We do quite many things, and to mention but a few, we are an army, or let me say a young generation, who care and fight for the earth. We noticed that with how evident this climate crisis is, we couldn't just sit back and watch our future being washed away. And we decided to get involved, and now we spread awareness using different arts like music, dance, drama, poetry, rap, etc. Still on awareness, we do community outreach programs where we visit schools and teach children about climate change, what is affecting them. We teach them about what part they can play to secure their future. We are inclusive. Last week but one, we were just at Kapala School of the Handicapped, where we donated books there, And we also teach them about climate change. We visit slums and we teach the less privileged who are there about climate change still. And it is surprising that even the schools that we visit, you find that they are not exposed to relevant topics such as climate change. And this is even in our everyday life as we're doing community outreach programs, where you find out of 10 people, only 1 or none knows about climate change. And this shows that the gap is even in the teachers. That means that we need to spread more awareness. We also visit rural areas. For example, last year, we were in Karamoja. We told the children there about climate change, and my God, their zeal for knowledge was up there. We also visited the Cotillo Health Center because you find that there is a high number of people who are malnourished, and at least we gave them something to sustain them, and which we are planning to go back.
Wow, amazing work that you're doing over there. Personally, I'm inspired by the work you're doing because you're very young and you've already realized the gap that we have. Because if someone that is young like you has realized that climate education is key and you're bringing it out to your fellow age mates so that they learn, this future owns to the younger generation because the future is yours. You're the ones going to grow to be the new policy makers. If you're already informed about the policies, if you're already informed about the necessities, what children have to do. If children are getting involved, you're involving more children in climate action. It is really amazing work, and I recommend you to do more, and you're impacting the planet. Thank you, Grace.
So we also have a tree planting project in Kanungu, like you said, where we plant palm oil trees. And by the end of this year, our goal is to plant over 1,000 palm oil trees.
Amazing.
We have did you know that over 95% of Uganda's population relies on charcoal and firewood use? And that is why we have a briquette project, or let me say a behavior change campaign, where we change their mindsets from using briquettes from using charcoal and firewood use to briquette use so that they can get better alternatives. Thank you.
A powerful generation that we are having over here, creating climate education at your younger age. So I'm going to go over to Aklila Alwi. The next question is yours. We have listened to the various work that you're doing, the various activities that you're doing in Kenya. So my first question to you is, how did you become involved in the work of environmental protection, and how are youth movements organized across the African continent to address the climate crisis? Depending on the fact that you are a youth, you're taking action. Over to you, Aklila.
Actually, how I became a climate activist is very interesting. I was randomly scrolling through social media, and then I came across a post posted by Vanessa on climate change, and I became curious because it was not a topic that's usually normalized where I come from, and I did my own personal research, and I realized I myself was affected by climate change. I did my own personal research, and I decided to take action to raise awareness and ensure that people out there like me, young girls from the coast and different communities, get to actually learn and know about climate change for them to easily understand or to easily adapt and raise awareness on issues affecting them without feeling like they're not heard. And also, as a climate activist, I've worked with my former high school in Malindi, where climate change or environmental related issues are usually not an issue that concerns the community, because as to them it's an issue that involves the government. So to them, as long as I am comfortable with what I have, or as long as I am surviving with what I have, I will not raise my voice to actually speak up for those who don't have like a voice to share their opinions and thoughts. So I am actually working with my former high school director on holding talks with some of the girls in the school and we're just trying to normalize climate change related topics and gender equality and environmental related issues to bring light to the community and to allow the community to actually understand a different perspective of these issues and how to respond and how to actually be a part of the movement and empower more young people to actually raise awareness and speak up when they're affected and feel heard and be a voice for their communities as well. There was the second question, I didn't get you clearly.
The second question was, how are youth movements organized across the African continent to address the climate crisis?
We've seen how young activists across Africa are taking to the streets, holding strikes, using social media as a way of communicating and using storytelling as a way of raising awareness. And I've noticed that a lot of African youth activists are using social media and taking to the streets to raise awareness, researching on issues affecting different communities and being voices of affected.
Can you pull your microphone closer?
Oh, sorry. We've seen how, not just in Africa but internationally, but I'm going to focus in Africa, where youth activists have taken to social media and have normalized social media as a way of raising awareness on climate-related issues on the ground in communities, and as well as them, apart from striking and holding placards, they're using their voices to let the world know that we are affected, we're aware that we're affected, and we know what we need to do for us to actually be heard. And a lot of activists are using storytelling as a way of raising awareness on affected communities, visiting communities affected on the ground, having conversations with them, understanding from a first-hand person who's affected, how they're affected, or the knowledge they have, or the knowledge they have on climate change to actually raise awareness on climate change. And also, they're also using art, as she's mentioned. And personally, I also use art as a way of communicating climate change. I usually do sketches and paints and engage with different age groups to actually use art as a way of normalizing climate-related topics within communities, because it's a way of actually communicating without words, and it's a language that is actually easily understood by everyone, and it's easily it's a picture. You can clearly see what's happening without having to say anything, which is a way that I feel like personally has been effective in actually communicating with the younger generation on climate-related issues.
Oh, thank you very much, Aklila. The key points that I've really picked from you, it's that the work that you're doing, the things that you're emphasizing, you're really emphasizing the community, getting back to the community, getting people involved, getting other students involved. And that is like what we are talking about. The earlier speakers have spoken about a just transition, and they have all emphasized how the just transition is about the people. It's about the community. We cannot have a just transition without involving the people to get a better way for them to transition. And with all the work that you're doing that is involving the community, creating awareness and involving other youths in the work that you're doing, it's very amazing, and it's really bringing to the solutions that we are looking for. And my next question is going to go to Mr. Sylvester. Considering the fact that we are on an intergenerational panel, we are here to talk about the just transition, climate change, but then when we are involving all different age groups. So, Mr. Sylvester, how can we strengthen the relationship between the younger and older generations? Is this relationship needed in our fight for the climate justice?
Thank you, moderator. I think this question is a big one, but I want us to go slowly. One thing we need to understand first is, what is climate? We have talked about climate, what is it? At creation, God realized we need energy. Whether human beings, plants, stones, animals, name them. And the holder of energy was climate. Because climate regulates our temperature. And from the earlier sessions, we were told the importance of greenhouse gases. This is something we have never taken serious. Energy is very important for us to be alive, for us to perform work, for us to communicate, and life to persist, to continue. So based on that, now the question comes, is this necessary to engage the different age differences? But there will be another question, what has happened? Why are we seeing this one as a problem? In those days when I was still young in the 1960s, yes, 1967, 68, 69, we used to sit at a fireplace in the evening and we would have informal education, ranging from environment, economics, culture, religion, name it. And the following day you'll wake up knowing that I think I have a sense of responsibility. So based on this question, there are so many things we have lost and which some of you really should appreciate. One of them is identity. Up to now, we don't know whether we belong to our homes. Except one person from this house, I have realized. What is her name, this artist? Why are you? She has gone. She has defined herself. So we have lost our identity. That we no longer believe that we come from a family. We no longer believe that we have a territorial identity, being an African. And we no longer believe that we belong to an ecosystem, the whole world. Because this morning we have been talking about human beings, forgetting animals, forgetting plants, and the others. All these need energy. So when we talk about climate change, it's a very big topic that really is very necessary for us to come up with. But therefore, in this case, actually Pope Francis calls this our clamor for the struggle to repair the lost ecosystem is a movement. And a movement is transboundary in terms of age groups, in terms of sex, in terms of nationality, whichever. All of us have a key responsibility to participate in the journey for ecosystem restoration. And take you back. All energy that was created, planet Earth is the only so far known shock absorber of the excess energy that is generated. Therefore, when we tamper with the planet Earth, we raise floods, we cut the forests, and the wetlands dry up, we are affecting the potential of planet Earth to shock absorb any excess energy that we don't need. That's why we are crying. Because Mother Earth is crying. And Mother Earth is crying, and if Mother Earth is crying, the poor, who we are also crying. Because when we don't get food, we don't get clean water, we don't have clean air like in Kampala. When you come to Kampala and you do a sampling, very many people are with glasses. So I may not be wrong to say most of us don't come from Kampala, because the number of people with glasses here are very few. So the question of intergenerational connectedness has no reason for doubt. Because actually, Francis tells us it is very important for us who are now old, like my age, to plant the future. How do we plant the future? by educating the young ones to be able to understand that the next world belongs to them, and therefore they must take responsibility about it. I am personally telling my children, where I stay, I borrow it from them. I no longer have responsibility over that. It's now their property. I'm borrowing it from them the days I'm staying there. So if we plant that idea in the young ones, that the future belongs to them, beginning now, then we're in the right track. But whenever we say the future belongs to them when we have gone, then that's a big mistake. So the question of intergenerational struggle in the aspect of climate change will require a revival, a renewal of certain aspects. One of them, let us revive our parentage. These days, children have no time for their mothers, for their fathers, because they are, is it Android? Come back for holidays, for evening, busy on WhatsApp, no sharing with the parent. And the parent sometimes is the time he has WhatsApp with his girlfriends and boyfriends, no time for children. That is a killer disease that is killing the connection between the young and the old. That's one. Two, can we revive our culture? How? If I can get the case of Uganda, parents used to give stories to their children. But you know, that wetland, you don't have to go there at midday because you will find Jaja Mukasa. And if you find him annoyed, you will not survive the following day. And in the process, the wetland would be conserved. And that's an effort to climate change mitigation. They would tell us, for example, for us boys, if you urinate in the running water, the river would go with your potential to become a better husband. You will never have a child. So I would make sure the river is kept clean, and therefore, in the end of the day, we shall have clean water. These stories are gone. We have taken our totems as meaningless. Some of these ecosystem living organisms have got a role they contribute towards ecosystem reconstitution. Take the case. There are trees in our former culture of Uganda. If they would grow somewhere, they were associated with water. When you see a tree around there, it is associated with water. Don't cut. But these days, that information is not being shared to the children. This is what we need to revive, the parentage. Two, that we need to revive to make sure that there's this intergenerational connectedness is let us connect ourselves to nature. I just want to give you a simple example. I have a grandchild, is now, I think it's 5. Yesterday evening he called me, Jaja, when are you coming? I said, I'm still thinking about when to come. Will you bring for me a tree to plant? Because at that age he has planted 3 trees. And whenever I go there, he takes me there to see the trees. So that child will grow, knowing that reconstruction of the ecosystem, when I plant a tree, it's not me going to benefit, but there is a purpose for it. Another thing we have to revive to make this intergenerational connectedness is the question of what quality of education are we giving to our children? Go to Makerere, go to Chambogo, Uganda Matters. These days, they are university, they are degrees. When someone tells you I have a degree, you begin wondering where it is connected to life. But it is a degree. A degree that distances a youngster from work. A degree that identifies this youngster with a white-collar environment. Yet, in our time, we were always passionate about skills to acquire. These included being a doctor, an engineer, a farmer, a political leader, a historian who would just relate things. But these days there are some courses there, when you look at them, you wonder. And what is happening is because the distance between the parents and the children is completely cut off. Something that needs Madam Coordinator of the program, that we really need to think and revive. Can we have love for our children? That the biggest problems of climate change and ecosystem destruction are barely political, economical, sociological, cultural. Some of us are here, we have mentioned about policies, but who makes the policy? A policy is made by somebody who has attended the workshop because he has to be paid money. He doesn't understand why he has made the policy. He doesn't understand what the long-term effect the policy will result into. Some of them, when they have attained positions of higher authority, they want to become the kings. And this is what the young ones are thinking about. They want to become the presidents, the ministers, and at the end of the day, they will inflate the policy to disorient our ecosystem. I might go far, I think. Let me first stop there, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sylvester. The audience, are you guys amazed like me? I have learned a lot from him. And the key point that I have picked from you is that we should keep our identity. We should maintain our identity. In whatever we do, we should remember our backgrounds. It's important for the old people to plan the future for the young ones by educating them, because when you educate someone, you empower them. Thank you very much, Mr. Sylvester. So my next question is going to Madame Justine. Madame Justine, earlier we heard about the work you do. You are very passionate about empowerment of women and girls. So this question is basically, women are on the front lines of the climate crisis, but they are also powerful agents of the climate justice. Why is it important for women, especially in the rural areas, to lead the climate change adaptation?
Very interesting question. And for me, when you talk about women, girls, in the African context, I look at this human being who has over 12 hands. A woman who is carrying a baby, a woman who is breastfeeding, a woman who is carrying firewood, a woman who is carrying a jerry can of water or a pot of water, a woman who is looking after the husband, a woman who is looking after the in-laws, a woman who is in hospital looking after the sick. I'm looking at a woman who is in the garden tilling, a woman who is trying to run as floods follow them, but meanwhile she's carrying all these hands. Is that a human being?
It's a woman.
It's a woman, yes. Yeah. So when we talk about a woman and the climate crisis, it is a very, very big topic that can take us even 2 days. But to sum up, I just want to bring the context that we all relate with, that climate justice impacts more of a woman, because in our African context, a woman is the one playing a bigger role in fending for the home. Why do I say so? When it comes to food security, a woman is concerned, because at some point the child is going to stop breastfeeding, and so that child will need food. All those many children will need food. Because in our context, the minimum number of children a woman will have is at least 4. But you find a woman with over 10 children. Do you agree with me? Yes. So when it comes to having, you imagine a woman, you're seated in the middle and all of you are looking at me, you know, saying, what next? Aren't we going to eat? And so that pressure alone, you're seeing Kato, you're seeing Babidi, you're seeing Nakato, you're seeing so and so and so and so. That pressure alone forces you to find ways of doing what? Making sure that there is food on the table. But how does a rural woman make sure that that food is on the table? She has to have somewhere to till. She has to have somewhere to grow crops, food crops. Food crops, I'm talking about potatoes, I'm talking about cassava, matoke, all those things. I'm talking about growing beans, because we'll need sauce. But you imagine this rural woman who is tilling the land using rudimentary ways, and she has over 10 children. And it does not stop there. This rural woman will need to have water, safe water, because she has to wash, she has to have safe water for drinking, she has to have safe water for using to cook, and many other things. But do you imagine of the distance where these people pick water from? Sometimes they walk miles. So imagine those places that have long droughts, like Karamoja, where a woman has to walk from here up to like Natete to get a jerrycan of water, and yet she has this big family. So how many hours is this woman going to take to have water that will be enough for the family, on top of ensuring that there is food secured for the family? Look at the times when it is raining, heavy rains. Ooh. This woman has to make sure that she utilizes that opportunity, because when there are rains, when the rains comes, that's when she's really preparing gardens, she's planting, so that by the time the season is done, she's done with the planting and waiting to harvest. This woman, wow. And now when it comes to the climate where trees are cut, this woman has also to bring firewood. I like one of the panelists talked about the mechanisms of briquettes versus firewood and charcoal, but our rural woman is using firewood to the extent that they are even forced to use the crops grown in the place of firewood, like cassava sticks. Are you aware of that? Cassava sticks are used for as firewood. Now imagine if we are using now the food crops, because it is the nearest thing she can do what? She can pick around. So all this pressure, the pressure is humongous, but I'm looking at these daily things that we relate with to bring the point home. that when it comes to climate crisis, it is a big challenge to the women and girls. And because this woman has these over 12 hands, poor girl, poor Justine, sees mommy is going to fend for this, is going to fend for this. At the same time, I want school fees to go to school. At the same time, this. I'm like, oh, okay, let me help you around. Okay? Or sometimes because of the cultural aspects, they are like, Justin, tolaba mama ogenda omuyambeko. Meanwhile, Richard has gone to school. What does that mean? In the long run, I might end up helping forever, and before I know it, Justin, now okuze, you have grown. You be married. I've seen for you a man. Okay? And sometimes are you aware that in long droughts, girls are married out so that those men who take their girls bring money to make them survive? Seeing, who are speaking, vomiting, walking, spitting, environmental, management. So if a person is married off, now is also given an opportunity to till the land, isn't she going to finish the trees? Because she lacks the knowledge. And at the end of the day, the impact is going to be on the environment. And the environment again is going to impact her. So we are going to move in the vicious cycle of environmental impact on women and girls. Right? So what do we do? I think it's high time that we embraced education. Education for girls, so that their capacity to adapt and be persistent, so that by the time they are married, they are equipped with the necessary skills to manage the natural resources that is available. When it comes to the women, it is very critical that my mother in the village is empowered and retooled. Do you know that retooling is a very, very critical aspect in environmental management? How do we retool? We should not look at the rural woman as do you know they are the richest people with indigenous knowledge on environmental management? Because one, they used to have, I remember my grandmother, there is a way they used to detect the weather. And when they would see a certain animal pass, they'll it is going to rain. We should start doing what? Preparing the gardens. Can you imagine that local, indigenous, organic skill? It is not written anywhere, but yet it is up to the mark. Have we harnessed that? Did you know that? We know what's up. So, Mr. Google, tell me, what is the weather? Weather forecast today. Is it going to rain in Bwaise or where? Hey. But how about in Karamoja? How about in Kaliro? How about in all other places? So harnessing, retooling, by empowering women, we need to retool them, teach them the necessary skills of alternative measures, for example, alternatives to firewood, so that we reduce the pressure on the what? On the trees, the pressure on the crops that they're growing to substitute for fire. Okay? So we need to, but this means we need to have resources to empower them with. Two, one of the challenges that I'm yet to talk about is access to land. Do you know that most women have no right to land? When you're married, you're married. All you have, produce for us children, the children will get married, we get dowry, we get all those things. You can only till, but you have no right to that land. So what does that mean? If a woman wanted to plant a tree that she knows that this tree is going to be helpful, she has to first write a concept note to the clan. And then they collect the clan leaders to see whether it is really, she really deserves to have that tree planted. But who is going to benefit from that tree? The whole community is going to benefit from the tree. But because she has no right access to land, she's limited. And so we miss out on that opportunity. Can you imagine? So what do we need to do? There is need for us to create awareness about land rights. And especially for people who are married and they have legal rights and all that, you have right to land. But because we don't know this limits us and we fail to tap into that opportunity. When it comes to management of natural resources, there is need to form women groups. You know, when we have women groups, there is a way we learn from peers. And this learning from peers is sustainable because you're able to empower one another. How? One of you may have knowledge about something. Another may have knowledge about the other. If you brought all those baskets of knowledge, you're going to have a rich group that is going to challenge policies or ordinances at community level. Or if where policies are not there, you're going to influence that policies are developed that favor you to make sure that you utilize the natural resources without hindrances. I have a lot to talk about, but I just want to keep it at this. Madam Moderator, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Justine. Those are very key points. When you highlighted a woman with 12 hands, it really depicts an African woman, and the various roles that they perform in the community. And with what I've picked from you, it is very important for women to lead climate adaptation because they have a lot to offer. When we offer them the resources that they need, you talked about land, they use them in ways that will actually help our environment. And it's key to empower them because these are the mothers, and when you empower them, you're empowering the people that are under them. And the key point that I don't want to miss is how you talked about the indigenous knowledge. We have to embrace the indigenous knowledge of the people that were before us because they protected this planet. And when we embrace that, we'll get the solutions. Guys, this panel is really great. Before we go for another round of questions, can we first give these guys a round of applause? So back to you, Grace, our youngest panelist. So before I ask you your next question, you wanted to give us a highlight on why voices of children are important in environmental conversations. Can you summarize that in a short time?
Yes. Thank you very much. I wouldn't really express children's voices to the degree I would want to. As we keep growing up, we keep hearing leaders, parents saying that they love us and they want to secure a good future for us, ignoring the things that really guarantee this future. Children are the least responsible for climate change, and yet will be the most affected by this crisis. We are the least responsible, but in that future, we'll be the most affected. By the time you're 30 and above, at least you've lived half of your life, because the life expectancy for a Ugandan is approximately 62.85 years. So by the time I am 30, if nothing is done, statistics state that there will be no actual world to live in. If we keep doing these small things, you are affecting us. I see different generations like it's an intergenerational panel, from the baby boomers to the Generation Z, Generation X, Centennial, etc. if we do not have a generation of people who have esteem for the environment, that means we have no world. You keep saying you love us, you want to secure a future. There is no future if there is no action to secure that future that you wish for us. Children's voices, we are underestimated as children. We look small. We look like we do not know what we say, just like we were born yesterday. Of course you were. It's just like the butterfly effect, just like the flapping of a butterfly's wings can cause a whole tornado. Or just like a mere spider web can bring out one of the hardest materials, which we all know is spider silk. If you keep underestimating us, then you are underestimating your grandchildren's future. You need to love your children enough to secure a future for them. Do not just tell them you are the future, because they cannot be the future if they do not have a world to be the future in. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Grace, for that. Your voices are very important. Oh, all right.
I am touched by the granddaughter. But something we need to add value to is the question of spirituality. We should appreciate that why we are here, this is God's plan. And what we are saying is God's plan. And as it is evidenced in the Bible, one time the children were making noise around, and the apostle said, "You get away, get away, get away, get away." And said, "May they come close, because I came for the children." If you do theology, go far, it says, spirituality is planted in the young to inform the future. So my granddaughter, you are not here by accident. Your friends are not here by accident. You are informing me and those who are absent, plus those ones who think are older than you, that it's the right time. Because Pope Francis makes it very clear in his book, Laudato Si, that we must start small. Start very well, and now. And this is it. I want also to comment on, there was a big question you gave to my sister here. You people, from now on, add value to a female being. Those who have not clapped the men, I think I'm going to cane you. I just want to give you one simple creational experience of the value of females. In the pathology world, the world of small insects, there are insects called nematodes. They normally stay in bananas, in coffee, in any other trees. So when they sense a scarcity of food, they get a meeting and say, "Aha, Sylvester, all the men, we eat you." And the women stay to keep the next generation. So when food comes back, God gave these insects a potential that some of them, because of the absence of males, some of them go sexual reversal. A few of them become husbands, and life continues. If I bring this back to life, to our human beings in nature, I want to be very sincere before you that a woman is very resilient. Beat her now, after 30 minutes, jango naabe amazi gawo bugumye. And they are the cleverest beings, cleverest by statistics, by research. Because you can imagine, me, I have an experience, wake up during the day, you don't know what to eat. You only find lunch is there, and you begin wondering why she got the food. Finally, whenever a woman has a problem, she persists. Go to the Bible. There was a woman whose son, or was a daughter, whatever, a child, was sick. And when she went to Jesus, the apostles first chased her away. She remained. And then when Jesus heard, he asked the apostles, what is the problem with these women, with this woman? As if she has a problem. Hello, madam, what is your problem? My child is sick. I want you to heal the child. And then Jesus gave her a very funny question. Have you ever seen dogs eating from the high table? Because they were looking at the apostles and Jesus as superior beings. That's how he tested the woman. But because the woman is persistent, she said, yes, it is true. They may not eat from the high table, but they eat the spillovers. Finally, Jesus said, your faith is strong. But I think he should have even added there, your faith and determination is strong. And immediately the child was healed. That's the woman.
Thank you very much. Powerful keynotes. And basically what we are all talking about is the power of a woman, the role of a woman, the power of the children, the power of Grace that is seated next to me here, because they are our future leaders. Let's embrace the voice of children. Let's empower them. Let's give them platforms, and let's not underestimate them, because they are our future. It's their future that we are destroying. Let's protect their future, as said. So the next question, my dear amazing panelists, let's make it brief because we are running out of time, so let's keep it a bit brief. So the question is for you, Grace. What is the kind of future that you envision for all children around the world? How can we achieve this future?
Thank you for that wonderful question. For those of you who have forgotten my name, once again, I'm Grace Jarnisima. And I envision a future for children to grow in a world filled with love, peace, kindness, and a clean environment. Under a clean environment, as I was doing my research on plastics, I got to know that over 850 tons of plastic are thrown into the seas every year. And I also got to know that plastic takes over 400 years to decompose. When it comes to polythenes, they are even worse because they take over 1,000 years to photodegrade. And by this, I mean they can never decompose. Clearly, plastic is here to stay. They just photodegrade into microplastics that continue to pollute the environment. All of us are victims. When we look at single-use plastic, we all know the 3 R's. Reuse, reduce, recycle. Reuse, reduce, recycle. It's put in everybody, even the children. Recycle, which is the one I'm going to be talking about today and put my emphasis on. Only 10% of this plastic is recycled. Where does the other 90% go? Do you know? The landfills. And when this plastic stays in those landfills, guess what is released? Methane. It was carbon dioxide. We always hear activists, carbon dioxide, carbon dioxide. We need to stop the emissions of carbon dioxide. And yet methane is even more greater than carbon dioxide. The only good advantage is that it wears out more quickly. And if this methane keeps on going into the atmosphere, we all know what it causes: imbalance. and which causes what we call global warming. Meaning that we are polluting comfortably just because we have been brainwashed that this plastic is gonna be recycled. So what you do, get your plastic. Of course, we are all guilty to some sort of plastic. First, the bottles of water that we drink in. That plastic that you see there takes over 400 years to decompose. When you go for shopping, when you go to the market for shopping, that polythene bag that they always give you after buying your tomatoes for food, it takes 1,000 years to photodegrade. The children, those Gorilla packets, chocolate packets, those candies that we always eat. Us as people, of course, we volunteer. Someone said that the people is the government. But the government has a bigger role to play. For example, burning this single-use plastic, which will even force the inventors to think of better alternatives to serve us without choking Mother Earth. Because if we keep just sitting down there and we're like, what will these people that produce this plastic do? What will they get to eat? Let me tell you this. I think I've heard this from my mom. There is no change without pain. If we are just gonna keep sitting down watching, what will they eat? Where will the children go to school? Where will they get the fees? A woman has the brain to think of better alternatives to use for a business. God gave us knowledge. God will not just be there and say, boom, I've given you a job, and you expect to just sit there and you expect that job to come in front of you. There are patterns that you have to follow to get that job. You hear all over the news people crying out, the government should help us, the government should help us. You think the government is just going to come there and say, kaboom. Your whole future is envisioned and it's planned out. No. There are patterns you have to follow. You have to use your knowledge. Think. If you have been selling charcoal, sell the stock that you have already. And start thinking of something else. Start working on it. One of the audience said in the previous panel, aids are good, but aids won't help. You can just sit there and say, you know what, people, I'm looking for funds. I have this idea. Please help me. I need funds. You think that people will give you the money? Sit down. Use your brain. Because people want to see results for what they're going to invest in money. There is no reason as to why somebody would give you money. You might be saying, these children are spoiled. I hear my mom saying that, you know, these big people say that millennials are spoiled, and I was born from a millennial. You might be thinking I'm even more spoiled. But I'm telling you the reality. There is no way you're just going to be there. And then after you envision, and then you're all like, my child will have a good future. There is no future you're living for your child, let me tell you this. You have to use better alternatives. We need a greener environment. We have higher chances of growing children that have more esteem for Mother Earth. Because just like Grandpa said, we have to plant these little seeds in a child from the time they are young. If a child knows, I have to plant a tree, each day I have to plant a tree because it helps the environment. Not only me alone. If we have children and people that love themselves enough, it's just basic knowledge. Plant it in a child, And then the child will keep growing, knowing that. The child will keep knowing that they are the future and they have to love their environment good enough. Just like Mama Justin said, a woman in the rural, let me tell you, is gonna plant a tree. Do not think the elites on Twitter are the ones gonna plant a tree. Leave what they are doing. And then after they just say, you know what, I'm gonna plant a tree. And then the person who is who works in the field of farming, who is in the village, knows that, you know what, if I do not plant this tree, I do not have a future. We need to spread more awareness. We need to have unity among ourselves. We need to have love for our country. We need to have hope, but with action. Because there is no way you're gonna sit there and hope. Tell people, I hope for this, I hope for this, I hope for this. If you just hope without action, it's like having wishes, which are horses. Every beggar would ride a horse, let me tell you. If you're gonna sit there and have hope, but when you do not have action, there is nothing you're gonna change. Together we can. We have hope for Uganda. United we can. Oh yes, we can. Thank you.
I don't even know, I'm lost of words. Is it me or Grace is too informed for a 10-year-old? But let's remember that from the powerful words that she has said, we should not just sit back. We need to have hope, but with actions. We have to follow certain patterns. You won't just sit back and expect the change that you want. And it's a beautiful world that you envision. And with the action and continued empowering of other young people like you, we will achieve that. Thank you very much, Grace.
You're welcome.
So over to you, Aklila, because we are here, we are making these demands that we want for the future, but we know the overall impacts are actually made by our leaders, where we need the political will, and we need them to want this as much as we want it. So what is your message to the leaders in the Global South and the Global North?
I'm going to share a story. Like last weekend, I visited and I camped in Amboseli. It's a national park in Kenya. And right now, it's like the highest season, and we have a lot of tourists. And when we visited, it was on a project to improve livelihoods powered by conservation and improve livelihoods on issues or things related to climate change. And we visited some of the communities where we were actually like trying to see what we can do to help them access water, food, and other stuff, as they were recently affected by droughts. And one thing that I noticed and one thing that I heard from one of the women was that they have a water trough that was donated, and the water trough is supplying water to the women, to the families, to the children, to the wild animals, as well as livestock. And if you look at the state of the water, it is not like personally, I wouldn't wish for anyone to actually consume that water. And then when you look at the amount of finances or income that they get from tourism and other sectors and other stuff, and we look at the state these communities are living in, there is no balance at all, and it makes you question a lot of things. And one thing actually that I realized, that you'd see girls or children, specifically girls is what I saw the most around her age, around 10 years old, would walk. They had to go like for a really long distance to get water. They're still in the like school uniforms, some of them, and they'd walk a really long distance just to get water, like the 20-liter jerry cans for a 10-year-old. Personally, I don't think a 10-year-old is actually is supposed to be carrying such an amount of water. And they wouldn't just go for one round, they'd go for several rounds just to make sure that they have access, several, as in depending on how much water they need in the household. And as they do this, it's also affecting their time to actually sit and balance with their education and other stuff. And when we spoke to some of the women, and one woman actually, she actually spoke and told us, she was scared of actually opening up, and she told us that I don't want anyone to know this, but I'm going to tell you that these new projects that you guys are going to bring here to make sure that we get water supply from the source, instead of us having to go or sending our children to that distance to get water, we have been told to stay away from it. As women, it doesn't concern us. These finances or these funds that you're going to send to the community, or the people you're going to send to actually help us get water, should not actually interact with us women. And she was actually saying that, I do not feel like this is fair, because when our community was affected, many of us were actually left as single mothers with kids, and they had to actually try and feed their children, and sometimes the schools had to close down because they did not have food to feed the students as well. And then when things start to get better is when their husbands actually come back, and when things are worse, they leave them behind. And you notice, like, some of these women have to actually turn to, as it has been said, actually marrying their children off at an early age, just to make sure that they don't starve to death. So my message to leaders is that when you sit and actually come up with solutions that are meant to benefit communities, or solutions that are meant to benefit our world in general, make sure that indigenous communities are there, young people are there, different people from different backgrounds are there. They have different perspectives, and youth have the energy and the sense of urgency to drive climate action. And when we bring diverse people, like people from different communities, and them being present allows us to actually see different perspectives of how people on the ground are actually affected, or how they view it and the solutions they have, which makes it a bit easier for us to actually work towards a just and fair world where everyone is actually heard, and the knowledge of indigenous communities is present in terms of actually us moving towards a just future where actually there's equity and there's sustainable solutions for everyone as well.
Thank you very much, Aklila. Basically, what I picked, my take home from you, the message to the world leaders, is that they should be inclusive. They should have everyone's perspective. They should include the indigenous communities. Like how we are having this summit, I believe it is very inclusive. We are looking for climate justice in Africa as the most affected and least responsible. We are having activists from around Africa that are representing us. We have activists from Uganda. Aklila is from Kenya. We have had activists from various countries, Tanzania. We have from Congo, Nigeria. So I believe the message that you're sending out to the leaders is that they should involve everyone in the solution that we are looking for. The women that are most affected in the area that we're working in, all must be included in the solutions that we are looking for. Thank you very much, Aklila. Now, my next question is coming back to you, our grandfather, Mr. Sylvester. So the question is, for thousands of years, indigenous communities have been caretakers of the environment, protecting their lands, respecting wildlife, and utilizing traditional knowledge passed down through generations. How can the integration of indigenous knowledge contribute to the climate mitigation? Over to you, Mr. Sylvester.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thousands of years. I am not part of those years. It's true that that is what happened. But very unfortunate that part of that good and rich information we needed is not documented. Although historians and other scientists can extract this information for our disposal and take on. That's the challenge to the youngsters who are researchers. We need that information. Although part of the information I know now is, for example, in the Uganda culture, when they realized they wanted to preserve wildlife, they took totems, Ndiwango, Ndiwandiga, you know? So they lived in relationship together. So that is question number one. Question number two that we have to do, the young and the old, is a mindset change strategy. A notion that we should embrace to withdraw from the I don't care attitude. After all, I'm going tomorrow. I am landless. Who am I? I am very young. I don't make a sense. What I expected to be is what I am not, and therefore I am marginalized. I should do nothing. Let us have a mindset change to take on our responsibilities. Because I've always told people that if you want to run very fast, run alone. But if you want to reach very far, run as a team. Trust Summit. I think for us to bring back that lost glory, to be able to regain our lost traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, rejuvenate the lost indigenous seed and animals, we must run as a team. At Bethany Land Institute, we have established a germplasm. No, that's a scientific language. A garden where we mobilize seeds that are endangered, and some of them, in some extent, are not there. You only find one seed, one seedling. We are developing this germplasm to bring back the lost glory. So this is something we have to do. At Bethany and Land Institute, we are training the youth, specifically with the notion of transformational leadership. Can I feel the responsibility as a leader, beginning with Jaja? She's already a leader. So can we all take that responsibility of being leaders so that we don't share blame and say it's government? My policy is, if it's to be, it's up to me. If we have to plant trees, I should start. If we have to conserve an ecosystem, I should begin. For example, my policy is every Soul's Day, from the day I understood the purpose of ecosystem restoration, every Soul's Day I plant one tree, wherever I am. I even planted one in Germany. They laughed at me. I told them today is Soul's Day. Can I go and plant a tree? And I explained to them. Secondly, plant your age. Who doesn't know his age? If, like for me, I think next year I don't have to hide. In June, I will be 60. I will plant 60 trees. I'm very happy. I will plant 60 trees. So that at the end of the day, I pass the message silently in such a way we shall be able to communicate with the others. I also want to suggest that to be able to recapture that message back, Jesus asked his apostles in the evening after he had taught them, and the apostle said, "Our Lord, you let these people go. They are all hungry." Jesus said, "What do you have?" "Only 2 loaves, and I don't know, were they 3 fish?" He said, "Bring them." Now, the previous panelists were addressing the issue of financing. For me, I believe in the past, those people were very rich because they had a positive mindset change and commitment. For us now, we have not understood that even Uganda still has the youngest soils. Even if you throw there a seed, a cutting of cassava, it germinates. we don't take advantage of that wealth. We have never realized that our temperatures are distributed, that even if we get adverse effects, they are not so much. Can we begin where we are with what we have to help ourselves? We are very rich, but the problem, we don't know how rich we are. Could be the problem is poverty of the mind. So can we have a mindset change? Finally, I want to suggest one thing, that let us be identified with specific issues, especially with the environment. Because for me, I worked in a school in Rakai, and we were the best school in the village that didn't have polythenes on the compound. When I was still there, and my name was Mr. Kavera. So whenever they would see me coming and they see a Kavera, say, Mr. Kavera, genda tukuba. So they would pick it, and I would also pick it. Even where I am now, I brought the same policy. My sister here has been there. Whenever, even Jaja, when they reach there, they tell us, oh, such places are still in Uganda, free oxygen, free green, and a quiet environment. Let us be identified with something. For example, for me, when I understood this, the problem of landless women, I was registering my land. I told Madam, when I married you, I didn't have land. We are going to have 2 names on this land title. This woman of mine took 3 days to believe. And the 3 days, what happened? I received 3 visitors, her girlfriends. Mr. Kule, tuze kuuza, chiwagambye Mama Hope, she's called Mama Hope. You drank a glass of seriousness. I usually told them, I am a scientist. When I speak my words, they are selected. And when they are selected, they are those words. So when they came to take the mapping, we slaughtered the chicken, and then when we were filling the form, I said, wagenda kusomero, you feel. You know the spelling of my names. I will only go there to sign it because you cannot sign for me. But I saw her writing with a lot of, I think, excitement. And that's what the village knows, that when Sylvester dies tomorrow, the woman is still responsible for the land. Currently, I am staying in Rakai. But whenever I go back home, I always find a new development on the land, especially with the planting of trees and planting long-term crops. Why? Because she knows she has a responsibility. She owns the land. So these young men who are here now, plus these young judges, you just know that when you own property, own it with your wife. That's when it will be sustainable, and that's when you will have peace. Fine. Finally, I know she didn't ask me what I want to see in the future. Maybe she still has that room for it, but I want to say what I want to see in the future. When you get charcoal, when you get 3 pieces of charcoal, 4, and put them in a charcoal stove, and you lit them, they burn, they catch fire. Am I wrong? They catch fire because one contributes an effort, another contributes an effort, and then you see fire coming up. But you get 1 piece of charcoal, 1 piece. Go and do it when you go home. You will finish a matchbox. The sticks will get exhausted. It will never get fire. So for me, I want to bless Trust Summit, that we can come up tomorrow with a body that is going to voice our struggle for ecosystem restoration. And if that is realized, then all of us who are here have assignments. One is personal definition. Who am I? Am I a female? Therefore, females have roles. Am I a male? Therefore, men have roles. Am I a human being? Therefore, I'm supposed to care for creation, because that's what the Bible told us. Define yourself. 2, commitment. Some of us might have come here for the first time, and maybe tomorrow I will not see your faces. Can we be committed to that strong force we are going to make? 3, walk the talk. Walk the talk by completed. Completed. Walk the talk by or your judge. We are finally, if any of you is here waiting to celebrate the efforts of his struggle, if anybody of us is here waiting to celebrate the efforts of his struggle, then you're in the wrong place. Plant for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sylvester. Let us walk the talk, and let's remember to run together if we want to reach a further distance, if we want to have bigger achievements. And my question to the final panelists, we are a bit time-barred, so I would want it to be as brief as possible. The question is, why is, because Madam Justine, you already told us about the various roles of women and how they are affected by the climate change and how they are important in this solution. So my question to you is, why is girl-child education and women empowerment key in addressing the climate crisis? Over to you, Madam Justine.
Thank you so much. Yes, actually, the previous speakers have almost responded to that question, but just to add that it is key because women and girls possess unique experiences that contribute significantly to the regaining of our ecosystem and also improving of our climate, in addition to management of our natural resources. Therefore, when it comes to educating the girl child, like my Grace, it speaks volumes. Do I need to re-echo? I don't need to re-echo. So that alone shows you the importance of educating a girl child. Grace is going to be resilient to see to it that she achieves her goal. The boom will not come as early as, you know what I mean? Yes, she knows her rights. And so not anybody will just play around with her. She will not entertain people cutting down trees in her areas. When she goes to Karamoja to monitor and she finds, hey, man, she will have a fight with people because she's aware and she knows the importance of those trees. Come to the woman. The empowering of a woman, Mzee Jaja has already said it by giving us the example of the wife. Do I need to go any further? How she caught the pen and she's like, today I am I am owning. Now, wait, my name, can you stick on this paper? Forever. So she wrote with a lot of energy, knowing that she's part and parcel of the what? Of the property. And when it came to developing, it comes to developing the property, it comes to developing the land, tilling the land, she does it with a lot of passion. And what comes out? Everyone, the community is enjoying the fruits of the woman. So why not empowerment? I summarize it from that angle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Justine. I have personally learned a lot from this panel. It has been very interesting, very educational. And I believe the audience agrees with me, like, who has not learned from this? Like, if you have learned a lot from these guys, let's raise a hand. Like, it has been so impactful. Thank you, guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, we appreciate what you've done. I remain the moderator, Nasanga Claire.
We have heard a lot of wisdom from this panel, and it has been amazing. I've been moving around, no one was dozing. People have been listening and very attentive. And this is a sign to prove that heaven wrapped up all the information being discussed from morning and passed their final message through this panel. It has been wonderful, and heaven has spoken, and I have nothing to add because these words can't just come from human wisdom unless it is given from above. So, thank you so much.
Regan, we have committed ourselves from the last panel and the rest of the panels that we must register great achievement in traditional Africa when, as you make a revision, when there would be an introduction ceremony, when there would be the last rites for the one who has died. In our culture, they would get local brew. And before you take a sip, you would first pour some few drops to the soil in memory of those that left you with something very rich and you are still connected to them. Likewise, as environmental promoters, it's very important for us to realize that those before us did their worth. That's why Uganda still has the name, the Pearl of Africa. That's why Africa is still called the natural and the only natural ecosystem in the world. And therefore, when they did that, they had a prayer. We have one of the priests by the names of Oscar Romero, and I have taken this prayer as my personal prayer. Whenever I'm doing something, you will hear the message. I want Grace to take this prayer for us.
Okay, let us humble ourselves and pray. It helps now and then to step back and take a long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it is even beyond our vision. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is a way of saying that the kingdom of God always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives includes everything. This is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do anything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that this enables us to do something, and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is the beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future that is not our own. Amen.